Could you all sit down? I'm David's brother Peter, and thank you all for coming today. I'm just going to say a few words, and then Dave will be off on the cycle path to the skies. Audrey hopes that all of you who can will come back to the St. Germans afterwards, and perhaps you'll double up on cars for those who don't have a lift. When my mother told me that Dave was dead, I confess that my first reaction after the shock was one of hurt, almost of anger. Why did this silly sod go and do that? I've lost my brother, a brother to whom I was very close, an easy, unforced closeness, unaffected by the fact that we'd lived in different countries for almost 30 years. And Audrey has lost her husband, my mother, her eldest son, Vera, her nephew, Hazel, Stephen and Paul, their father, Emma and Josephine, Kiana and other children yet to be born, their grandfather, Annabella and Zachary, Robert and Faye, Robbie, Philip, George and Joel. They've lost their big uncle Dave. And all of us, a very good friend. Why, oh why? If only he'd taken better care of himself. But that wasn't Dave, was it? He certainly didn't plan to have a heart attack, but he wasn't about to change the style of life either. That was about meeting people. Yes, often in a pub, talking to them, having a good time talking to them, and so often keeping in touch with them afterwards and meeting them again to spend yet more enjoyable evenings, late evenings with them. Dave certainly had a temper, and he could get very irritated, often with himself. He was completely cack-handed. But, and I know I really don't have to say this, he was a very kind and a caring person. He was also a bright bloke. He passed his 11 plus with flying colours. I learned just this year that his pass was the best in Kent that year. And he got excellent A-levels too. But of course, just as Dave was one of the first teddy boys, who here remembers Dave climbing Eros, so he was also one of the first hippies, before we even used that term. Rather than go to university, he went off hitchhiking to Spain, all around Europe and North Africa. I think not going to university was one of the things Dave really regretted. And it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd used part of his 60s to do precisely that. He started working life as my other brother Roy, we don't forget Roy, and as I did, at Paddington Station, an area of London that meant much to him as it does to me. Steve doesn't know how lucky he is not to be called Paddington. He had spells selling vacuum cleaners, and there's some funny stories there, and perhaps we'll recount some of them in the St. Germans afterwards. He moved on to RHS, Road Haulage Services, and then on and up in a succession of acronyms, SPD, Birdseye, NFC, XL, and probably others which I can't remember. Basically all in distribution. At the age of 54, having reached a senior management position, he had the chance of early retirement and he seized it. By then he was already hankering for a return to the simple life, pedaling his bike. Cycling was something Dave started, as did the entire Coldrick family, when he was 7 or 8, touring around the whole of the British and Irish Isles for 2 or more weeks every year. Both before and especially after his retirement, Dave with Audrey has done all that again and much, much more. If there was room for it in that coffin, we should really add his bike. So we've lost him. Well, it's not fair. But at least it was quick. Dave would have made a very bad, a very unhappy invalid. When Roy died, someone pointed out to my father that as long as someone lives on in another's thoughts, they were not really dead. For me, that's been true of Roy and of my father, and now will be of Dave. Some of my memories: playing in the woods behind our house in Copthorne Avenue. Dave never admitted that he was the mastermind of the Squared Circle X gang, and now I'll never know. Having a drink at every pub between Bromley and home, over 15 then. Going up to the Shetlands, walking back in the dark to the Owl. Getting up on early, crisp November mornings on numerous canals. Watching him sitting in my kitchen, rolling a cigarette and giving £2 coins to my kids. And talking to him for the last time, just a few weeks ago as he was about to leave for Turkey, looking forward to life. He told me about his plans for a new canal adventure in September in Ireland, and then up to the Shetlands for Arpeliar in January. The dumb anger has gone. The sadness and grief are still there. But there are the beginnings of some smiles as I remember, as I'm sure you will remember, the good times together. But first we must get through this day. Thank you. Could you all stand, please? We'll have just a couple of moments' silence. Thank you all very much.